Kicking off the list at number 10. VR. The Simpsons didn't predict VR at all. That was a concept that's been around for a long time. It's just now getting good. I mean, recently I got an Oculus, and I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I felt sick when I tried to use it. I almost threw up. You have to throw items at bad guys. I actually get anxious. My heart races. Olivia straight up cried when she tried it. It's a whole process. This is pretty powerful technology. Like, this is Black Mirror stuff. The Simpsons predicted that VR could possibly go wrong back in 2016. The episode titled Friends and Family has the town excited over this new tech that's finally arrived. And they're so into it that eventually people are walking in the streets wearing these goggles. They're getting hit by cars. They're losing touch with reality. We see disconnection from reality all the time. We saw it in WALL-E. With Facebook going the virtual route recently with the introduction of the metaverse, I believe that The Simpsons undermined the dangers for this one. You thought pop-ups and sketchy links were bad for children on Facebook? Well, soon we're gonna be walking into this actual virtual website. $3 billion worth of VR was sold during the pandemic. Connection during times like these, I mean, that's great and all, but how far can we really go? Number 9, Mars life. Let me ask you lovely people a question, truly. If you could go to Mars right now with like 3 of your friends, would you actually go? Keep in mind, it's really boring, obviously, and unless you're an astronaut, botanist like Matt Damon, odds are you'd probably have a rough go once you did arrive. But in the future, sure, maybe it'll be a round trip, easy. Going to Mars might be as simple as going to the mall. The Simpsons showed a family visit to the Big Red Planet come 2051, but honestly, I think we'll get there a lot sooner. SpaceX is already planning to send people out there. It's crazy, it's happening so fast. It's just a quick 9-month trip there, so make sure your phone's charged. And also you gotta watch out for the galactic cosmic rays. It's actually more beneficial for the team to travel during the peak times around 2030 and 2050 because trips to the planet will be shorter, for one, which is great. And they'll also coincide with periods of solar maximum. So while this one may not come true in 2022, let me tell you, it's definitely around the corner. Number 8, robots. We're at a point now where robots can straight up do parkour. Boston Dynamics is trending every other week. Half the time I can't even tell if their videos are real or if they're CGI. The robots are too impressive. Also, the fact that I'm saying the robots, like, where are we right now? What's going on? The Simpsons have touched on robots taking over. That was an idea that's been done a few times. In 2012, they predicted that a great amount of jobs would be lost to the robots. But back in 1994, the Simpsons episode titled Itchy and Scratchy Land showed a theme park full of robots that go crazy and attack civilians. Also, we have Sophia the robot now. She's actually been on talk shows. It's like a real person. She has a citizenship. She's the first robot to receive citizenship from a country. Saudi Arabian citizen. She's a robot. This is real life. She was also on the CNBC saying that she wanted to destroy humans at one point. So that's neat. This could slowly be underway. I mean, I hope not. iRobot is literally one of my biggest fears. The movie predicted self-driving cars. That's all I'm saying.
How can I be of service, Detective Spooner?
Number 7, Dome Sweet Dome. For this one, we're looking at the Simpsons movie, which definitely still holds up. If you haven't seen it, check it out after this video. That's a fun time. But with the pandemic seeming to never end, could we possibly see our own towns domed up? This idea came long before the Simpsons movie. Back in the 70s, there were talks about putting a dome over Manhattan, this 3-kilometer dome over Midtown that regulates weather and pollution. It sounds fun, but imagine if that actually had been built. Imagine what we have been doing with it now during the initial COVID outbreak. It would have been madness. People would have been storming it like a castle. And then in 2010, there was a city planned that was supposed to be built in 2020. It was called Eco City. It was supposed to be built in the Mir mine in Siberia. It was announced in 2014 officially. This climate-controlled dome city, 4.5 square kilometers, but since 2016, the project lost the dome. What do you guys think? Should we use domes over cities, lose the umbrella, and just live in a big glass ball forever? Honestly, I would do it. I'm tired of walking in puddles. Number 6, the World Cup. An episode from 1997 called The Cartridge Family shows Mexico and Portugal going head-to-head in football. Like soccer football, not like football, like a football thing. You got it. Springfield residents are told to go see this match to determine which nation is the greatest on Earth, Mexico or Portugal. So in 2018, when the World Cup rolled around, pun intended, fans were excited that this was actually coming true. But at the same time, they had to laugh, determining that Ronaldo must have missed that penalty intentionally so that the prediction would come true. Although I think that was just a mistake. But recently, it's been announced that Qatar will host the tournament in November, December 2022, rather than the usual June, July dates. Another World Cup, another chance for the Simpsons to add another prediction to their impressive list. Number 5, flying cars. We've been talking about flying cars for so long, I wouldn't even call this a Simpsons prediction anymore, but they've nailed it before, so who knows. 2022 could be the year we say goodbye to tires forever. In 2005, Professor Fink created this machine to let Bart and Lisa see the future. The future at that point was 2013, which is long since passed, but Marge had left Homer because he spent all their savings on an underwater house. But also in this episode, we see hover cars. Come 2017, the concept of a futuristic hover car was revealed. It's called Float, the Renault car of the future. So come 2022, we might not see these exactly, but we might get an even cooler version. We might get this 6-person hover car. That's like something that Fantastic Four rolls around with. Are you kidding me? It's called the cyclocar. I'm absolutely going to get my license just for this. Number 4, music control. You ever listen to an album and it's so good that it moves you? Sometimes it'll literally move you, right? You have to go and bop around in the kitchen for a bit, get all those beats out. But what if music moved you in like a Pied Piper kind of way? What if next time you heard the cha-cha slide at a wedding, you had to do the cha-cha slide? In 2001, an episode called New Kids on the Bleak showed Bart in a band that was secretly a mind control device for the Navy. Subliminal messaging through music. Love it. One of their most popular tracks was called Drop Da Bomb, so obviously it was a bit more obvious where they're going. But this isn't a new idea either. Many people have thought that hip-hop brainwashes people. Even The Game, like the artist The Game, believes that the internet is brainwashing people into enjoying whack music, as he says. That's a quote. It's a real-life quote from a real artist. What do we think? Are we slowly being brainwashed through music? I mean, every time I open TikTok, I end up hating another classic that I loved once, so maybe it's just we're seeing it too much? Also, I love how hip-hop is like the center of attention for brainwashing the youth. No, it's literally like, yeah, I got 4 jobs, I make bank, I don't sleep, I work my ass off. Meanwhile, other genres are like, I think he's cheating on me, you should go through his phone. Number 3, VR food. The Simpsons had their 600th episode centered around VR. As I mentioned earlier, it's a pretty big deal. It's a technology that's changing lives, really. And those midnight snacks might get a whole lot better in the future, apparently. I swear to God, one time when I was dozing off watching TV, I tried to eat food that wasn't there. I tried to half asleep and eat food. It was the dumbest thing I've ever done, but could you imagine if a pizza pocket just magically appeared in your hand in the middle of the night? Well, the Simpsons predict that this virtual reality food might just be a thing. Scientists at Cornell University found out that cheese tastes better when you eat it in a certain pleasant VR setting. So if you see me eating shredded cheese at 2 a.m. naked with goggles on in my room, leave me alone, okay? Don't judge me. I'm in Paris. I'm dining out. I'm having a culinary experience. Shut the door on your way out of Paris. Get out of my room. Number 2, digital Big Ben. You ever look at a clock with like, hands and all that jazz, and it takes you a while to actually read it? You're like doing addition. You're like, hey, is that a 2 or a 3? Where's that hand? Why is there 4 hands? Some timepieces need to be digital, right? Middle of the night, you can't see time. You're looking over to see how long you've been asleep for. You can't look at hands and all that jazz. Also, when you go to a wedding, you're not wearing a digital wristwatch, right? You know what I mean? You're not a spy kid. You're not gonna be timing people doing laps. You're trying to look good. You're trying to keep it classy. The Big Ben, I hope, never goes digital, but never say never. In an episode from 1995, the future shows Lisa traveling to England to meet her future husband's parents, and the Big Ben is digital at this point. Now, today, construction is still being done on the Big Ben, and we won't hear its chimes until next summer, but can you imagine when they finally reveal it, instead of a chime, you hear a beep? Imagine every hour you get a notification instead of hearing those lovely bells. I'd lose my mind. And finally, number 1, Hologram Mail. Coming from season 11, episode 17, Bart to the Future, we get another tease at some future tech. A mailman gives Bart a letter, but it packs quite the punch. Bart opens it up and the letter is, well, it's 4D. It's like a hologram person. It's almost like Star Wars. Honestly, since I saw Star Wars when I was a little tot, I always wanted that technology in my life. That would be amazing. VR food sounds delicious, but hologram mail, that would save lives. I would send so many letters to my friends and family. I'd wear a cloak in all of them too, and I'd be so ominous. And I would never click stop. I would just stand there and walk out of frame. You know what I mean? That's how all the villains do it. If we get virtual mail, that would lead us to virtual packages. No more shipping fees? Oh, can you imagine? But also, no more eagerly awaiting your package that's been delayed for 2 weeks. We can actually use this. This is great. This is the future we've been waiting for.
Number 10, interactive holograms. The season 11 episode Bart to the Future has been one of the most mentioned Simpsons episodes when it comes to predictions. It helps that it takes place in 2030, which at the time I'm recording this is still 8 years away. If YouTube is still around then and you're watching to see if any of these came true, let me know in the comments. I promise that I'll check. The episode most notably correctly predicted that Donald Trump would become president, but there were some other things that have yet to happen that could mean trouble for us in the future. In the beginning of the episode, Bart is watching Itchy and Scratchy, the gory version of Tom and Jerry, but instead of on the TV, he is watching a 3D hologram. Well, these are close to becoming a reality, with the likes of Tupac and even Homer himself being shown as holograms on stages. A 3D hologram that is interactive is far from our capabilities right now. The scary part of this is when blood gets sprayed all over the walls of the Simpson home from the cartoon. While the idea of an interactive hologram is cool, in practice I think that it could provide some real nightmare fuel. Before we get to our next entry, hit the like and subscribe buttons if you're enjoying the video so far. Number 9. Virtual Takeover. I'm a lover of VR. You know, my headset probably gets the most use out of all of my gaming consoles, so I love the idea of VR becoming more immersive, and we're making some huge strides, like haptic technology that allows us to feel things happening in the virtual world, or full body and face capture technology to allow realistic bodies and movement in games. But one thing that is yet to happen that could be on the way is a mass adoption of VR on the scale of what happens in season 28 episode 2, where Mr. Burns discovers VR and the whole town of Springfield is using it to a point of near societal collapse. While virtual reality allows for some amazing things to happen and augmented and mixed reality have some more practical non-gaming applications, it's not out of the realm of possibility for us all to be walking around with some sort of crazy device strapped to our heads in the future that allows us to change the world we see. But the implications of losing touch with reality can be massive, and the episode proves it. So let's hope that if VR takes off like I think it can, that we keep our feet on the ground and in touch with the real world around us, and take the goggles off from time to time, or we'll forget to take care of our actual reality. Number 8. Hologram Trees. The episode Lisa's Wedding from season 6 takes place in 2010, 15 years from 1995 when the episode was released, and unsurprisingly many of the predictions of the future have yet to come to pass, like Big Ben being replaced with a digital interface. But one that we should definitely not want to happen is the hologram trees that we see. While the thought of being able to switch from coniferous to deciduous at the drop of a hat is pretty fun, if they're just aesthetic, we could be in a world of trouble. Trees filter CO2 from our air and give us back oxygen, which is pretty nice of them. And unless the holograms have some CO2 scrubbing tech to come with them, replacing real ones with projections will have a dramatic impact on our atmosphere. We can already see the beginnings of this with deforestation, so let's focus on our real arborist friends rather than holographic ones. Number 7. Robot Rebellion. Them Robot was the 17th episode of the 23rd season, and in it we see Mr. Burns replacing all of his employees with robots except Homer to save costs. But one seems to be developing a personality when it understands Homer's working hard or hardly working joke. Homer eventually messes with the robots so much that they ignore the laws of robotics and attempt to kill Springfield residents. Obviously this would spell disaster in the real world as it does in the show, and we're moving towards more and more automation in the workplace, allowing humans to work less dangerous jobs and eventually allowing us to hopefully spend more time living life than working our time away. But we are nowhere near that point yet. The Simpsons dabbles with the idea a few times, like in the episode Itchy and Scratchy Land, where the animatronics gain sentience and attack parkgoers, a la Five Nights at Freddy's. AI gaining sentience has been the device of science fiction horror stories for such a long time, but it's becoming closer and closer to a real life issue. Heck, there's even a robot named Sophia with AI so advanced that she was granted citizenship in Saudi Arabia. I don't want to deal with real life Cybermen when the Cyberium takes over, so maybe we should slow down on the whole giving robots consciousness thing. Number 6. French Fiasco. The French have been an ally to the Western world for the entirety of modern history, but in Treehouse of Horror 8, all of that is thrown out the window when Mayor Quimby makes an apparently offensive frog's legs joke and refuses to apologize, telling them to do their worst. Even Marge joins in on the jabs by saying, "You know how unpredictable the French are. One minute they're kissing a woman's hand, the next they're chopping off her head." Well, the French president didn't take too kindly to this and starts a war by launching a neutron bomb that levels the town, leaving Homer as the last person alive in all of Springfield, and we all know that leaving Homer alone is a terrible idea. Now, it should be painfully obvious why France launching missiles aimed at the US would be something we don't want to happen, but that's not the only scary prediction from this episode. Number 5. Teleportation. In Fly vs. Fly, the second story in this episode, Homer buys a teleportation pod from Professor Frink for 50 cents. A damn good deal if you ask me, but maybe too good to be true, as the rest of the episode shows some of the terrors horrors that could come with this tech. Instantly arriving somewhere else on the Earth after simply stepping into a pod has been a dream of many scientists for centuries, and the practical applications would change society as we know it. And there have been some crazy advancements, like the Chinese scientists who teleported particles to a satellite in space. But in the episode, we get a warning of the dangers that could lie ahead, with reference to the classic science fiction horror The Fly. We see the loyal Simpson pets, Santa's Little Helper, and Snowball 2 becoming merged together Cronenberg style, and Bart gets the idea to turn into a superhero with the power of flight by merging with the Fly. Clearly he didn't see what happened to Jeff Goldblum, but life finds a way, and Bart and the Fly switch heads when their DNA is merged together, leading to the horror show of what the family has to deal with. I don't know about you, but I don't plan on mixing my DNA with any other creatures, so until that's sorted out, I'll stick with the TARDIS. Number 4. Colonization of Mars. Season 27, episode 16 has the Simpsons signing up to be some of the first colonizers of the Red Planet, albeit somewhat unwillingly, and eventually their trip turns out to be a scam perpetrated by the scientists, whose rocket fails to start, and when they try to flee the scene, their car can't start either. But at the end of the episode, we get a time jump to 2051 and see them actually living on Mars, though Lisa now wants to leave and move to Venus, which would be an absolutely horrible idea. Though the idea of Mars colonization is thrown around all the time these days, the thought that we may have to use it as a necessity when we finish destroying this planet is not a future I look forward to. But I mean, I'd probably go. Would you? Number 3. The dome. The main plot device in the Simpsons movie comes in the form of a giant dome encapsulating the entire town of Springfield after pollution has led to mutations in local wildlife, and not just the three-eyed fish near the nuclear plant. Stephen King actually released his novel turned TV series Under the Dome in 2009, 2 years after the Simpsons movie debut. Another prediction, perhaps? While the idea is incredibly silly, we have seen in the past few years that quarantine can become a reality for us, albeit without the impenetrable dome, but who knows, maybe in the future this could become a real thing to stop environmental disasters from getting out of hand, like catching a hurricane in a bottle or something. Ridiculous, I know, but let's just hope we never have to use it. Number 2. Time travel. People assume that time is a strict progression from cause to effect, but actually from a non-linear, non-subjective viewpoint, it's more like a big ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff. And the Simpsons have dabbled with time travel many times over their 34 seasons, but in Treehouse of Horror 5, we get a glimpse of what is commonly known as the butterfly effect. I know Ashton Kutcher's ears just pricked up when I said that. Time travel could have insane implications on the human race, but there are multiple theories on how it would work. Maybe if you went to the past, you would create an entirely new timeline where things are different, or maybe nothing is able to be changed at all because time is constant and what has happened has always happened. But in the episode, we see that Homer's small changes in the past with his time-traveling toaster bring massive consequences forward, like Flanders ruling the world, people becoming giants, and even the world having no knowledge of donuts. So, if time travel becomes a reality, and maybe it already has in the future, we need to be careful not to mess with anything, or we risk losing everything. And finally, we reach our number 1, mini black hole. In Treehouse of Horror 23, the town of Springfield begrudgingly builds a particle reactor instead of a baseball stadium and creates a tiny black hole, which swallows up a few residents before Lisa can move it to her basement for safekeeping. After she warns the family to not throw anything into it, lest it grow bigger, they do exactly that, and it becomes massive and swallows everything in its path, taking the townsfolk to an alternate dimension where aliens worship the trash they disposed of in the hole. Black holes are scary enough on their own, let alone what would happen if one was to pop up on Earth, already surrounded by matter it could consume. So hopefully this prediction never happens, or we wouldn't know what hit us until we were spaghettified, which is an actual scientific term describing what would happen if you fell into a black hole. You would be stretched infinitely thin as you were pulled across the event horizon, and since time is affected by gravity, it would last an infinite amount of time. Spaghettification, your new word of the week.
Kicking off the list at number 10, Tom Hanks, the spokesman. Back in 2007, The Simpsons hit the big screen. The Simpsons movie, of course, was full of celebrity cameos. One of the most memorable was, of course, Tom Hanks. Yeah, and in case we didn't recognize him, his first line in the movie is, "Hello, I'm Tom Hanks." Gets a good laugh every time. He continues by saying the US government has lost its credibility, so now it's borrowing some of his. As long as it's not Chet Hanks, the future is looking pretty bright. Cut to 2022, Tom Hanks still looks great, ages like fine wine, as of course. But now he's a real-life spokesperson for the US government. This time around, he's not animated, and this time around, he's supporting the Biden administration. Number 9, No More Goodbyes. In season 11, episode 17, titled Bart to the Future, Future, an episode we obviously mentioned a couple times in this series. Goodbyes are no longer needed. There you go. In this bright new future, everybody says, smell you later. That would be so helpful, just to say one thing all the time, like a uniform goodbye, know what I'm saying? Instead of improvising on the spot and sounding like an idiot, I can't even end YouTube videos and I script them, you know what I'm saying? I can't sound cool leaving a video I've scripted. I'm like, hey, hit that thumbs up and stay funky. What? I'm throwing peace signs, I'm trying to be cool. I don't know. There's a lot of pressure in a goodbye. Smell you later is way better. It's smooth. Imagine doctors telling you bad news. They're like, I think it's time to call the family and we should start saying our smell you laters. They're like, word. Number 8, space billionaires. Of course, in a part 2, we have to include a Simpsons prediction that's truly out of this world. Billionaires just love space, eh? I guess when you've bought everything you could ever dream of on Earth, you need to seek out to the cosmos for some inspiration. The Simpsons predicted Richard Branson's space excursion back in season 25 in the episode titled The War of Art. That was back in 2014, and recently, Richard Branson blasted off planet to float around Virgin Airlines for a bit. Just cause he could. NASA is now partnering up with film studios and Tom Cruise, so this is really just the beginning of what we'll see in space as far as billionaires go. Number 7, Ivanka 2028. The Simpsons predicting Trump's presidency is pretty wild, I'll be honest. That one's like, really? They nailed that one? Okay. This next one, honestly, who knows? Out of everything on this list, this one seems the most likely so far. The Simpsons may have predicted another Trump presidency. This one comes from season 28, episode 4, Treehouse of Horror 27. The episode originally aired on October 16th, 2016, and it opens up with Bart asking Homer why he's taking the family Christmas tree shopping on Halloween. Homer replies, because in America, everything's way too early. And then he reveals a pin that says Ivanka 2028. Number 6, talking houses. Here we go. Another fun future I would be so on board with. Talking houses, Ultra House 3000. This was seen in Treehouse of Horror number 12. It's a fully autonomous house produced by the Ultra House company. It can be installed as the house is being built initially, or it can be added to an already existing property. So we all get a talking house. How lovely is that? We all get one. Chris, you get one. I get one. Matthew Perry and Pierce Brosnan voiced the Ultra House 3000, so if this ever does become a reality, I'm for sure getting Matthew Perry to hold the ship down while I'm grocery shopping, for sure. Just talking to my plants all day. These future Ultra Houses will ideally cook for you. It'll do chores, prepare baths, light some candles, make it intimate and all, and being equipped with AI, it can entertain all day long. Fridges nowadays tell you when you're running out of food, so honestly I give it 10 years before Alexa starts telling us to go to bed. Number 5, talking cars. Gotta mention this one while we're at it. Talking cars. This is the dream. We've all waited for this, and it's close. Dare I say it's arrived. We've all hit the horn at one point in traffic with force, you know? Like part of you wishes the person in front of you could just feel that in the back of their stupid head. Well, back in 1999, an electric car was seen as the punchline in season 11's Beyond Plunderdome episode. Homer drives an electric car called the Electorus because he wants a free giveaway item afterwards. But during the mandatory joyride, Homer ends up crashing the car off of a cliff accidentally and then setting it on fire. At this point, the car uses its own voice chip to call for help. Today, we're close to that. Of course, electric cars are much more popular now, but services like BMW Assist are now available, so if you were to get into an accident, God forbid, information is automatically sent out. Tesla recently added a boombox mode to their cars, so now you can put silly noises instead of a horn. You can make music come from your car, hence the title boombox mode. So what if you customize the horn to say horrible things? What if you customize the horn and then drive around town spreading fake news at the push of a button? You know what I mean? I would make my horn sound like this. Excuse me. Number 4, hover cars. I don't get the pull with hover cars. We're like, oh, it's gonna hover a foot and then do the same as a car. What? They're still on the road. They're still on the way. They're still fat and stupid. I don't know. I don't like cars. Unless we're talking about flying cars, that's way better. That's different. Unless we're talking about Simpsons Hit and Run, that hover car slaps. That's the only hover car that I'll buy. Well, hover cars could be a thing come 2024. We're pretty close. How lucky are we? I've been hit by a car, but I haven't been hit by a hover car before, so let's add that to the list. Lacuna Technologies believes that they're close. They're close. They're getting there. Chief Executive Officer Hugh Martin says most people will likely still travel on the road in electric or self-driving vehicles at this point. I don't have a car, let alone a hover car, so unless Homeboy's giving these things out for free, I'll be taking the hover bus. Until then, thanks. Number 3. The Homer. This one feels the most likely in terms of cars and futuristic car stuff. I feel like Jeep guys are pretty close to this one. The episode titled Oh Brother, Where Art Thou from Simpsons Season 2 features this futuristic supervillain looking car. The episode has Homer meeting his half-brother, Herbert Powell, and Homer straight up bankrupts this guy. Homer designs this new vehicle that everyone's supposed to use and ends up costing thousands, looks stupid, has like 2 domes for an interior, a speaker on top if you feel like sharing your thoughts loudly to passerbyers, all the good stuff. And just this month in 2022, it's how recently we're talking here, BMW showed off the new iX Flow concept that allows users to change their car's color. Project lead Stella Clark says the changing color concept is kinda crazy, but can offer plenty of help, like real help. Charging status can be displayed on the vehicle, and if you can make it blink and change colors, it's easier to spot in a parking lot. Let's hope Optimus Prime next door doesn't have epilepsy, then we're good. As of right now, the BMW iX can only change colors through scales of white, gray, and black, but the technology can theoretically provide other colors as well. Custom cars is the future, meanwhile I'm still customizing skaters on Tony Hawk Underground 2. Number 2, AI medicine. In season 23 of The Simpsons, we have an episode titled Holidays of Futures Past, and as the title suggests, as well as this video, this is a glimpse into the near future. Well, not really near. This time around it's 30 years in the future, and we have a young, well rather older, pregnant Maggie. And she's being given a sonogram by a medbot. Not a doctor with a human body, a medbot. Sans body. So creepy. This is so scary. The medbot still has a face, a digital face. That's a little comforting at least. It's a screen with a smiley face on it. Or a sad face, depending on the news. Is this the future? Is it happening now? Zoom comedy shows were one thing, but consulting a doctor during the pandemic over Zoom? Come on, like we're trying to swab ourselves, we're like hammering our own knees. What's happening? What are we doing here? Are we close? Let's do it. Artificial intelligence replacing doctors sounds like an absolute nightmare because, you know, we've seen Black Mirror and any horror movie. Okay, Dr. Alexa, give me stitches. Good luck. You missed. Hope you don't glitch mid-procedure. See ya. Right now, we're at a point where AI can enhance clinical productivity by getting artificial intelligence to, you know, handle administrative work, all that stuff. Bertolon Mesco, known as the medical futurist, refers to AI as the stethoscope of the 21st century. Yeah, what, made of metal and all cold on your chest? I've seen too many movies, man. This happens, and then the iPad takes your temperature, and the iPad takes your wallet, and the iPad takes over the world. Meanwhile, you're sitting there with a sore throat, confused, wondering what year it is. AI anything is bad news. Stay away from my tonsils. And finally, coming in at number 1, President Schwarzenegger. Hasta la vote, baby. Haha, I'd get that on a shirt. I'm just saying, I'd get that printed out. Imagine if this guy actually won. I mean, I know we said those exact words before in history, but really, can you imagine Arnold Schwarzenegger ran and then won as the President of the United States of America? If this rings a bell, it's because the jacked bodybuilder, family actor guy, he was the president in the Simpsons movie from 2007. As former governor of California, it wasn't a surprise to see the Terminator get an upgrade in the hit animated film. And for this one, we can look forward to not having Kindergarten Cop as the United States president because he was born in Austria. He's not a natural born citizen of the US. But you know what? Never say never, because I feel like we've seen crazier before, right? After all, the guy can go back in time. Haven't you seen Terminator?
Starting off this countdown, we have the Higgs boson particle. In season 10, episode 2 of The Simpsons, Homer becomes inspired by the work of Thomas Edison. As a result, he tries to become an inventor. In one scene, we see Homer scribbling on a chalkboard. At the bottom, it reveals a math equation, which wasn't thought to be anything big, you know, just Homer doing some scribbles. Until more than a decade later, when scientists discovered the Higgs boson particle, otherwise known as the God particle. People then realized Homer's work was a lot like this particle. Like, what kind of sorcery is this? Do they got a team of scientists working for them or something? Seriously, the writers either must be super smart or they have psychic powers. Or both. And at number 9, we have the grease scheme. And if you guys like this video and you want to see more videos from us, then make sure to give this video a big thumbs up because it really helps us out. So in the 1998 episode titled Lord of the Dance, which is from season 10 episode 1, Homer comes up with an idea to steal grease from a bunch of places, like his kid's school cafeteria, and then he sells it to make a quick buck. Well, guess what? People started doing this in real life. In New York, people were going around stealing grease from restaurants. It was so bad that apparently $75 million worth of grease gets stolen each year. Restaurants had to start hiring people to safely remove their grease so that people wouldn't break in and steal it. Sounds absolutely crazy, right? Well, somehow, The Simpsons knew that this was going to happen. Or maybe people were influenced by Homer in that episode. Either way, it's pretty creepy. In our 8th spot, we have the Outbreak. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty creeped out when I found out that The Simpsons might have predicted COVID-19. Seriously, it's really creepy. So in the 1993 episode titled Marge in Chains, a mysterious virus from Asia plagues the town of Springfield. In the episode, a sick factory worker coughs into a bunch of boxes that they were shipping out to Springfield. As a result, tons of Springfield residents get sick with this flu. The flu spreads quickly throughout the town, and soon a number of residents become ill. On top of that, the doctor says the best way to combat the flu is to stay at home. Okay, that's pretty creepy. Seems an awful lot like what's going on currently. So in 1993, The Simpsons predicted this current outbreak. Not only that, but in the same episode, they had these killer bees. A bunch of townsfolk knock over a crate labeled killer bees when looking for the cure. Well, a couple months ago, we had the scare of murder hornets. So tell me how The Simpsons managed to get 2 predictions right in one episode. Like the same episode. They knew that murder hornets were gonna be a thing at the same time there was an outbreak. It's crazy. Moving on, number 7, we have the tiger attack. In 2003, Roy Horn from the duo Siegfried and Roy was attacked on stage by their white tiger. Thankfully, he survived the attack. But it seems like The Simpsons predicted this 10 years before it even happened. So let's take a look at the 1993 episode titled Springfield, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love Legalized Gambling. What a title. In this episode, we see 2 magicians named Gunter and Ernst. They worked in a casino and had a magic show where they displayed white tigers. Sound familiar? Well, in this episode, while performing a show, the tiger lashes out and attacks both the handlers in front of a crowded audience. So you're telling me that The Simpsons made an episode that's a parody of Siegfried and Roy, and then years later the exact thing happens to them? Yeah, that's some weird voodoo stuff going on there. I don't like that. And at number 6, we have the Three-Eyed Fish. So in The Simpsons, the Three-Eyed Fish is known as Blinky. It's a mutated fish that gets discovered after Bart fishes it up near the Springfield power plant. This happened in season 2, episode 4, which aired back in 1990. Fast forward to 2011, and there are headlines about an Argentinian man who caught a three-eyed fish while out on a fishing trip with some friends. Turns out that the fish was caught in a reservoir where a power plant pumps hot water from their facility, and clearly the water gets polluted. The fishermen said that it was dark at the time and they didn't really notice the fish, but then when they looked at him with the flashlight, they saw his third eye. How convenient. A three-eyed fish. Just like in The Simpsons. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with 9/11. There are a bunch of cartoon shows that have been thought to have predicted the tragedy that occurred on September 11th, 2001. One of them being Johnny Bravo. The other one, of course, being The Simpsons. In a 1997 episode titled New York City Against Homer, we see Lisa hold up a magazine. The camera punches in on it and it reads New York, $9 a day. Behind the $9, it appears to be the Twin Towers. The way that everything is formatted, it looks like it says 9/11. At this point, I don't even know what to believe. Moving on, number 4, we have Capitol Hill. Of course, you all know by now that on January 6th of this year, an angry mob of President Trump's supporters stormed Capitol Hill. Well, turns out that The Simpsons may have warned us that this would happen. For this, let's take a look at the 1996 episode titled The Day the Violence Died. This episode was meant to be a parody of the 1976 Schoolhouse Rock segment, I'm Just a Bill. The Simpsons version was I'm an amendment to be. In the episode when the amendment is ratified, the character says, "Doors open, boys," and then a bunch of amendment or bill looking characters start storming up the steps of the Capitol Hill building. Some have then linked this scene to what happened at Capitol Hill on January 6th. So I don't get how they do it, but they do. Like, what magical powers do they have? Do they have a crystal ball or something? Let me know. Coming in at number 3, we have advanced technology. So somehow The Simpsons knew how technology was going to be like for us in the future. A lot of these predictions were made in the 1995 episode titled Lisa's Wedding. In this episode, Lisa visits a psychic that shows her what her future is like. And in one scene, we see Lisa's husband Hugh talking to a watch, which then literally turns into a phone. Sound familiar? Watch that you can use as a phone? Yeah, an Apple Watch. In this episode, they also predicted FaceTime, since there's a scene where we see Lisa talking to her family on what looks like a FaceTime call or a video chat or whatever, I don't know. Again, this was done back in 1995, and the Apple Watch came out in around 2014. So The Simpsons are just always ahead of the game. Coming in at number 2, we have the NSA Spying scandal. In 2013, a former contractor for the CIA, Edward Snowden, revealed that the US National Security Agency, the NSA, was collecting phone records of millions of Americans. Dun, dun, dun. So they were spying on us. Well, not me, I'm Canadian. But they were spying on people through their phone calls, and they probably still are. But anyways, in the 2007 Simpsons movie, they literally predicted that this would happen. So in the movie, the Simpsons family flee Springfield and are hiding from the EPA. Well, in one scene, Marge warns her family to be careful because people could be listening in on their conversations. Then it cuts to a room filled with NSA agents listening in on a bunch of people's calls. It's like they knew from the beginning we were being spied on by the government. I mean, we all had our suspicions, but the Simpsons actually said it out loud, and they were correct. I'm starting to think that they have insider info. And in our number one spot, we have the horse meat scandal. Okay, all of the predictions so far are pretty creepy, but this one goes beyond that. So in 2013, the horse meat scandal was a huge food industry scandal in which foods declared as 100% beef were found to have horse meat mixed in with it, along with some other animals. Countries such as France, Iceland, England, Russia, Ireland, and Sweden were affected by this scandal. And as gross as it is, The Simpsons predicted it. So this was predicted in an episode back in 1994 in which lunch lady Doris is feeding kids mystery meat. More specifically, in season 5, episode 19, Doris serves the kids from a large container, reading assorted horse meat. And guess what? Kids' lunches were affected by this horse meat scandal. So, what are the odds? Like, honestly, Simpsons, you can tell me that it was meant to be a joke, but I don't know. This one is pretty weird. I honestly think that that was a warning for us.